Welcome, everyone. Welcome. We're just gonna wait a minute as we allow everyone to join us. So I'm Annie Smith. I'm the Vice President of Research and Data here at NCEA. And I'm so excited today to be joined by Dr. Julie Dallavis. She is faculty in the Institute for Educational Initiatives and is an Associate Director for the IEI Program Evaluation and Research Team. She teaches in the Education, Schooling, and Society minor and serves as a faculty liaison for the Notre Dame Program in Interdisciplinary Educational Research. She earned her undergraduate degree in the Program of Liberal Studies, a Master of Education degree, and both master's and doctoral degrees in sociology from the University of Notre Dame. Her research focuses on school organization and culture, school sector differences, and school choice policies using mixed methods, including quantitative survey and student test score analysis, qualitative interviews and focus groups, and content analysis using topic modeling. And we're so lucky to have her here today. Welcome, Julie.
Thanks so much, Annie.
And before we get started, I just want to start us in prayer. In the name of Father, Son, Holy Spirit, amen. Dear God, thank you for your amazing power and work in our lives. Thank you for your goodness and for your blessings over us. Thank you that you are able to bring hope through even the toughest of times, strengthening us for your purposes. Thank you for your great love and care. Thank you for your mercy and grace. Thank you that you're always with us and will never leave us. Amen. And with that, I will turn it over to Julie.
All right. Thanks so much, Annie, and thanks so much to all of you for being here today. I'm really pleased to have the opportunity to share some findings from the Catholic Education Data Study with you, specifically some descriptive data from our recent principal survey. My slides to go here. So first, just a quick overview of our time together. I'll begin with some context for considering issues of data in Catholic schools and share some of the origins of the study. Then I'll briefly walk through the research questions, the data and methods, and I'll spend the bulk of our time on the descriptive and summary results. I'll close with some important takeaways as well as next steps for the larger data study. So schools across sector have been faced with increased accountability pressures over the last 2 decades. And while Catholic schools don't face the same level of pressure as many public schools, Catholic schools don't exist in a vacuum. So as public schools improve their data practices and provide greater transparency, specifically related to academic achievement, Catholic schools face increasing expectations from parents and stakeholders to demonstrate how they compare to public schools. So currently, Catholic schools rely on research studies that are more than 2 decades old to make the case for the Catholic school advantage and to market the academic value proposition for Catholic schools. As private schools, Catholic schools also face greater challenges related to operational health and vitality than public schools. And within these current conditions, the strategic use of data can help Catholic schools consider how they are doing, what areas need greater support, and where improvements may be needed. So this study flows directly from Notre Dame's efforts with NCEA on the National Data Project, where one of our specific goals and domains includes a better understanding of the landscape of data practices in Catholic schools. We began this work with a superintendent survey at the 2019 NCEA Convention in Chicago, and we gained a sense of the wide variation in dioceses' access to and use of data. In addition, the need to better understand Catholic school data and data practices has emerged from Notre Dame's program evaluation work, as we are increasingly required to submit evaluation reports on our programs as part of federal and private grant requirements, and many of these evaluations could be strengthened with greater student achievement data. So to gain a better sense of the data landscape in Catholic schools, we asked several questions. What data systems do school leaders use? What data do they collect, and how often do they use and share these data? And what challenges limit their use of data? To consider these questions, we created a stratified random sample of 27 dioceses, taking into account the number of schools within the diocese and its location geographically to ensure that we had access to the smallest and largest dioceses and those in between. And we included an oversample of the largest dioceses to ensure that we included more than one diocese in each strata. We were able to survey principals in 25 of the 27 dioceses, and the survey was short and contained a mix of survey measures along with opportunities for open response. Today we'll provide some summary statistics and the common themes that emerged in the open-ended responses. With this survey, please keep in mind our main objective was to consider school-level interaction with data that will help shape and inform a future interview study with principals. We received 566 out of 994 responses for a response rate of about 57%. Okay, so we're going to walk through some of the different results. First, talking about data systems, next, data collection, data use, data sharing, and then finally, data challenges. So starting off with data systems. So the majority of the schools in our sample report using one of two student information systems, either RenWebFax or PowerSchool. There were some others that are also used in smaller proportions. I didn't list them on the screen, and this is one area where I want to definitely look forward to talking to some principals about, because I'm learning of more and more student information systems that we ourselves were not aware of here. Oh, let me go back one. Sorry about that. Okay. Next, we'll talk about student assessment tests. In our sample, roughly a third of schools without high school grades, so K5, K6, K8, report using either the NWA MAP test or Renaissance Star, and another quarter report using the ACT Aspire test. Other tests include Fountas and Pinnell, Iowa, Dibbles, and Terra Nova. And from these numbers, this suggests that at least 85% of schools are making use of some form of formative and adaptive assessments in their schools. These are usually taken 2 to 3 times per year. And several of these formative assessments provide real-time information on student growth that teachers can use to inform individual and classroom instruction. So when we look at schools that contain the high school grades, the majority of those schools report using the ACT-SAT test. ACT Aspire, MAP, and STAR are used in smaller proportions in these schools, as well as the state assessments. Moving on to data collection, when asked what types of data they collected, within our sample, more than 80% report collecting and storing data related to student gender, student race, ethnicity, and religion. And roughly half of the schools reported collecting information regarding English language learner status, students who qualify for free and reduced lunch, students with special needs as designated by an IEP, and students with home languages other than English. Less than a quarter of schools collect data specifically related to family socioeconomic status, and less than 10% collect information on student mobility. And by that we mean kind of if students transferred into the school, what school they transferred from. Thinking about individual student level data, more than 80% of schools report collecting data related to individual student enrollment, attendance, grades, and standardized test scores. Roughly 70% keep discipline records, and less than 30% collect information on long-term outcomes, for example, high school and college attendance and completion. More than 70% of schools in the sample report collecting and storing data related to school accreditation, the curriculum that's used, enrollment records, finance records, aggregate achievement scores, teacher observations, and human resources. And roughly 40% of schools report collecting parent and community related data. So kind of parent involvement data. In an open-ended response question asking about what data schools would like to collect in future, several common types of data emerged, including that long-term outcome data, that high school and college enrollment and completion, additional demographic data, and data related to fundraising and benefactors. So the next two slides present responses about the frequency of data use as reported by principals. So each of the bars sum to 100%, and the different colors capture the different frequencies, with dark red representing less than one time a year to dark blue representing daily use. So within the national sample, just over 50% of principals report using student level assessment data between 1 to 4 times a year. Student level attendance appears to be the type of data used most frequently, with over 40% of principals reporting that they use these data daily. There's considerable variation in how often principals report using student level discipline data, with responses split more or less similarly across the different responses. And the majority of principals report using enrollment and long-term outcome data twice a year or less. And student level grades are most often referenced quarterly, likely during standard report card periods. Turning to the frequency of school level data use, the most common response within the school level data categories of multiple ones here: accreditation, assessment, curriculum, enrollment, parent and community involvement, teacher observation, and human resource data is about 1 to 2 times per year. This differs for the finance category, where the majority of responses suggest monthly use of financial data. Within our sample, about 3/4 of school leaders report using data to make instructional, financial, and admissions decisions. Around 65% report using data to make curriculum decisions, and roughly 40% use some form of data in discipline, development, and employment decisions. And this is one area that we are really interested in delving into more in an interview study to better understand how they're using data to make decisions and some examples of the decisions that they are making. When asked about data sharing, currently more than 80% of school principals report sharing data with their diocesan central office. 70% report sharing data with parents, and about 50% report sharing data with NCEA or the state. And we have about less than 5% report sharing data with their school board, donors, and parish community. That's another area where we'd like to delve into, because I'm not sure that less than 5% number is accurate. So that's another one where we want to look a little bit closer. When asked to provide concerns that principals have with sharing data, we asked this in an open-ended response question, and several common responses surfaced. Many expressed concern for student privacy and the need for data security. Several principals were also aware that the data that they share may be misinterpreted. In a related concern, some pointed to the difficulties they have in preparing and translating the data into a usable form to be shared. And several discussed the resources that are needed in the form of personnel, time, and professional development in order to be able to organize and share data. Others worried that there might be unintended negative consequences related to sharing their school's data with others. So that's something that's also on their mind. Moving on to the challenges that school leaders face. Again, this was, we asked this in an open-ended response format, and the responses could be grouped into 4 common categories or themes. So we'll look at the process surrounding using data, resources, systems, and attitudes. So the most often cited challenge related to process and the steps involved in working with data. So school leaders must collect and analyze data, as well as translate the data in different ways for different stakeholders, and use the data and encourage others, particularly teachers, to use the data to inform practice. Each of these multiple steps, data collection, analysis, translation, use, each come with difficulties. But by far, school leaders reference translating the data and using the data to present the largest challenges. Limited resources also present challenges for school leaders. Many feel they need more time to devote to data, as well as professional development for themselves and their staff. Many express that there are simply not enough personnel with expertise in the school to work with data, and others noted that the number of requests for data and analysis that they receive and the time that it takes to provide responses to these requests is a significant and related challenge. We also asked survey respondents to indicate which additional resources would be most helpful in working with data, and we asked them to rank these. So time to work with data was ranked the highest, closely followed by professional development, with adding personnel with data expertise and additional data tools and software, also with considerable priority, but kind of in that rank order, with time being the resource that would be most helpful to school leaders. So other challenges related to data use revolve around the systems currently in use. Principals expressed frustration with the need for multiple systems. Many use a student information system, a finance system, a test system, an enrollment system. And specifically, like, many of these systems are not integrated, and creating useful reports often requires accessing data from multiple systems manually, because the data can't be easily imported or integrated from one system to another. Others noted flaws in the systems, or felt that it was difficult to access data in the system, or that systems were not as user-friendly as they would like for them to be. Other challenges related to data culture. Some school leaders' responses suggest that they need further convincing on the usefulness of data. A few expressed feelings of data overload in response to a growing focus on data. Some shared the sentiment that data can only tell part of the story, and they worry about data standing in isolation without contextualization. Others feel that their schools are so small that there's less of a need to focus on data, and that data trends are not always accurate because the school is so small. And a few face challenges related to reporting demographics, with a few questioning whether these data are important to collect. So in summary, I want to highlight just a few important takeaways from this survey. First, some bright spots. More than 80% of school leaders in the sample report collecting basic demographic data on students, and more than 80% report using formative, in some cases adaptive, tests that can provide data points at multiple times during the year, and provide data that can help teachers assess student growth and differentiate instruction. Roughly 3/4 of school leaders report using data to inform decisions in the areas of instruction, finance, and admissions. And over 80% report sharing data with their diocesan central office. School leaders also report using most data at least annually, but with some exceptions related to quarterly achievement data and monthly financial data. Related to challenges, we find that principals report that translating and using data are their biggest challenges, and they feel they need to find and devote more resources in the form of time, professional development, and personnel to efforts concerning data use. And time and professional development seem to be at the highest priority to them. School leaders also share that the data systems currently in use pose some issues, as there are many of them. Some may be difficult to use, and there are issues related to integrating data between systems. Some principal responses also indicate that some school leaders may need some convincing of the usefulness of data. So this is just one part of a larger study. We first surveyed and interviewed diocesan superintendents. And just a plug, I'll be presenting the findings from the superintendent study. Oops, let me go back one. So I'll be presenting those findings in an on-demand session at CLS. Our larger objective here is to understand, data practices, challenges, and aspirations at all levels. After surveying school leaders, which is the data you learned about today, our next step is to interview principals to better understand, how they're thinking about using data and to further unpack some of the survey findings we presented. We then hope to proceed in the same manner to explore the classroom level, first by surveying teachers, and then by following up with teacher interviews. And finally, we hope to compile and disseminate best practices at all levels. I'd like to thank all those who participated in this study, along with NCEA and the Institute for Educational Initiatives at the University of Notre Dame for their collaboration and support of the research. And I really appreciate your time and attention today, and I'm happy to take questions. And I've added my email address here in case you'd like to send me a question or a comment after the webinar concludes as well.
Thank you, Julie. One question we had is, will we be able to share these slides afterwards?
Sure, I'd be happy to share the slides. And I'd probably just share them through you, Annie?
Yeah, if you send them to me, I can send it to all the participants.
Sure, absolutely.
Great. And then how do these results compare with school leaders in public schools and their use and challenges with data?
So that's a really good question. I have seen a report that was put out by the U.S. Department of Education, where also some of these same challenges related to time and culture, and also systems, kind of these problems with systems not talking to each other, and there needing to be extra steps in collecting and processing data and putting and packaging data as issues for them as well. One thing that public schools have that we do not are more centralized governance structures. So whereas public school superintendents can mandate a data collection system, that's not as likely the case in a Catholic diocese. A lot of dioceses are moving toward, and I talk about this a lot in the CLS presentation about moving toward the use of common systems for student information and testing, because that provides the superintendent with access to the data. That isn't as possible in some dioceses than other, but there are some who have made great strides in kind of centralizing and standardizing data at the diocesan level. Happy to answer a follow-up question if anyone's interested in more information on that.
Thank you, Julie. If anyone else has any other questions, we'd love to hear from them. Either post them in the chat or the Q&A box. And as you can see, Julie's email is there if you want to contact her afterwards. We will send out the slides and post this recording on our website in case you want to share this with others. And as Julie said, her results from the superintendent study and interviews is going to be at CLS on-demand library. So we'd love for you to register so you can watch that too. And you can also contact me if you need anything. Julie, I don't know if you can see that. Did the survey takers mention resources that they use to understand the data?
I can't see that question. Can you repeat that one more time for me?
Did the survey takers mention resources that they use to understand the data?
So we have not gotten into that. That was not a part of the survey. It was simply a check. Do you use these different types of data? And how often do you use them? So that's definitely part of the next round to kind of delve into to learn kind of what resources that are are in practice, kind of what are some of the processes, what are some of the best practices, what are ways that principals have found ways to overcome some of these challenges, all in the hopes that we can share some best practices unique to Catholic schools with the larger community.
And the follow-up question is, maybe that's why they mentioned professional development as one of the main needs.
I would think so. I know that using data is on, like, collecting it is one thing, but using data is on a lot of people's minds. You know, it's one thing to have all this data, but if we're not using it to the best advantage, you know, there's an investment of time at the collection level that really needs to have a payoff. So definitely professional development is being used to target some of this. And again, that's another area where I hope to learn more in the interview study to see where principals are going for professional development and what types of professional development they're offering their teachers.
Great, thank you. Okay, I don't see any other questions, Julie. We're so thankful that you're able to join us today, and we look forward to learning more from the study as you go forward.
Great, thanks so much. I really appreciate it.
Have a great day.
Thank you.